make a guest appearance, though.
He probably will. He's asleep under the couch right now.
Nice. How's everybody doing?
Hey,
there I am. Okay. For some reason, I got backstage again.
Song. Oh, I don't know how that happened. Oh, you know what? I have 2 rows of content. Phil, you'll have to keep an eye for Captain Larry if he somehow gets dumped.
Yeah, I fall out.
How's everybody doing? How's your week been?
Good. Off vacation, kicked everybody out of the house. They're back to Germany, so
in Cali, nice.
Now we can get some stuff done.
I can get some stuff done. I got a big project I'm working on right now, but I'll share that with you guys later.
Nice. Well, let's do some intros. Phil, Phantom Restoration.
Hey.
Tell the people where they can find you, what you do. Say hi.
Hi, my name is Phil, Phantom Restoration. I'm currently drowning in comic books here in Queens, New York. Only good things.
Awesome. We have the link to his website and his Instagram in the description. Reach out. Captain Larry, say hi to the people.
Hey, people. You can find me on Instagram. I am on Facebook. And just reach out to me if you have any questions. I have been on vacation really for like the last month, so I haven't put out any content, but working on some stuff right now, so I should have something out for you guys soon.
Yeah, you might also see him if you're flying international.
That's true. Yeah, today I'm home.
And we have a special guest this week, everybody. We have Dr. Shelby Thompson from Shelby's Comics. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Shelby.
Nice to have you here with us, Shelby.
Yeah, I'm very excited, man. I'm excited as a red rooster riding a red wagon downhill.
So I'm, as always, your host, Dr. Paul, coming at you from an undisclosed location in the Texas Hill Country. In case you couldn't tell from his accent, Shelby's not that far away from me. Just a few towns.
You don't have an accent like Shelby, though.
Well,
Michigan man.
We're going to find out, but we're going to find out his origin story, and we're going to find out about that accent soon. We have a super exciting show. I've got multiple segments planned. I think we're going to wing it a little bit. We'll see whether or not we have 2 or 3 main segments, but one thing we're definitely going to do is we're going to have Shelby's origin story, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking about comic book conservation with him and the projects he has ongoing and some that he has coming up. So hopefully everybody will stick around for that. We're going to kick off as usual with our fair market value segment, which is really an interesting one this week. I am super excited about it because it really there's so many questions in this one for me, and I'm excited to hear everybody's input and excited to hear from the viewers what they think as well. Speaking of the viewers, I want to say thank you very much to Ben Stewart and Cap One Superman. They both made generous donations last week. This episode and the next episode are going to be brought to you ad-free by those 2 gentlemen. So thank them. Thank them in the comments. Yeah, thank them in the comments because that's why you all get to view this without interruption. At least if you're watching it live, there'll be ads if you're watching it on demand. That's just how it is. So how about we get started? What do you guys think?
Sounds great.
All right.
Let's go.
I'm excited. I love this.
Oh, nice.
Fair market value segment. So one of the reasons we like to do this is because if we're working on comic books, we'd like to know that we're creating value or equity. And it's not always clear. And the market, especially in some of these golden age books, very thin in restored and conserved books. So when we see one of these books come up, we love to kind of do a deep dive into, just how much should this book be discounted relative to universal grade, or should it at all? Which occasionally happens, that restored books sell for more than the last universal example in the same numeric grade. So as they say, buy the book, not the grade. It's very important. And This week's, as I said, was a super fun exercise in exactly that question. What are these books worth? So one more book. I have two more from this auction. This is another book from the PBA Galleries auction put together by Ivan Briggs. Highly recommend you check out. He puts together some really unique and fun themed auctions and comic books and lots of other collectibles if you're into that sort of thing, including watches and pens and all kind of cool stuff to fill a man cave with. So I goofed. I didn't put Wonder Woman comics #1 here. I should have.
Oh, no.
The rest of the slide is correct. It is July 1942. It is her origin story with a little bit of new material added, and it's the first appearance of Ares. The median grade for this book is 4.5 in Universal, and you see in terms of Universal copies, 134, 206 all grades with 54 restored, 14 qualified, 2 conserved, 2 signature. Not a super rare book, but obviously not an abundant book, right? Yeah. So it's an important book. I've said before, I think Wonder Woman's origin is the best from DC's big three for sure. And I love this book because they went back and they just sort of polished her origin and added a little bit of supporting material to it. So it's kind of a fuller origin than what you get in All-Star 8. And it's really well thought out, really well edited and executed. And I think from that standpoint, it's a great book. It's also obviously #1 of her ongoing, which was a big deal back then because very few superheroes could carry their own ongoing titles. It's also the first appearance of Ares, who was a recurring bad guy for her. Kind of, you know, in the Golden Age, they didn't have recurring supervillains as much as they did in later times. So it's not like he has a ton of Golden Age appearances. But one of the cool things is when they relaunched Wonder Woman post-Crisis, and George Perez had a hand in that, and it was a really big book. They actually relaunched her with her main villain being essentially Ares, which is kind of cool. And his first appearance, of course, is here.
Why do you think so many restored? I don't think I've ever seen a Golden Age book that has like over 25% restored.
Oh, there's plenty of them. There's some that approach 1-to-1 where they have almost half the total copies are restored.
Superman 1 might be like that. Yeah.
We talked about Flash Comics last week, and Flash Comics #1 had almost the same number restored as Universal. As you get into these high grade, or I shouldn't say high grade, these key Golden Age books, there was big financial incentive, even as long ago as 20 years ago, to restore them. So it used to be this is a good, we've had this conversation before, but we haven't talked about it in quite a while. So in the early days of the hobby and really collecting, and when these books really started to appreciate, restoration was a financial decision that almost always was the correct decision. So the original Overstreet guide, they had a rule of thumb for the value of a restored book.
I love this.
And the way the rule of thumb worked was if the book started in VG and then it was restored and its new apparent grade is VF, then the value should be halfway to the new apparent grade. So the official Overstreet stance on it was it has the same value as a fine book or a 6.0 for noobs, right? So if it started as a 4 and it was restored up to an 8, then the value should be the same as a 6. And that was true for 20, 30 years. And it's really only been a recent thing where restored books, the market value has been dramatically lower than Universal in general. So back in those days, 20 years ago, there weren't enough Silver Age books to have a ton of enough value to make it worth your time to pay a restoration expert to restore the book. So there aren't that many professionally restored Silver Age books. There are some of the mega keys. They tend to get amateur restoration. They were also more abundant.
Yeah.
But the Golden Age books that people were looking at in the 80s and 90s in particular were these big key books. And it almost always made financial sense to have them restored. And that's why we see such large numbers. In a way, it's good, because I think if there hadn't been all these restorations, we probably wouldn't have as many surviving copies, and our median grades would be much lower, right? If you take all those restored copies and you unrestored them and threw them into the universal census, your median grade's probably going to be a 2.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I thought that median grade was a little bit high. So anyway, I didn't mean to get us off topic.
No, not at all. I think it's good to remind everybody of that from time to time. Yeah.
And it just seemed an oddly high number. But yeah, it makes sense now that you said it. So appreciate it.
So I'll just quickly through these. This book is not in this tier. It doesn't have a major first appearance, and it's much more abundant. It's not even in this tier, again, for the same 2 reasons. It's not in this tier, although value-wise, it approaches these. These books here are much rarer, but again, they have a lot less cultural relevance. These do have major first appearances, but they're not as culturally relevant today. I think it's close to this tier, but just not quite. So it has similar count in the census. So the abundance is similar to this tier, but it doesn't have the major first appearance that a Captain America 1, an All-Star 8, or even a Sensation Comics 1 has. Now, there is an argument to be had between Sensation 1 and Wonder Woman 1. For me, I think it's pretty straightforward. Sensation 1 is the superior book. I actually prefer the cover here, and you get 2 first appearances. It's also her first cover appearance. But it is a title that obviously fell from favor. It's one of these titles that had a number of different stories in it. So there's only one Wonder Woman story here. And I could see the argument for Wonder Woman 1. It's just not where I fall down. Thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I tend to agree. Yeah, it is an important comic, but I would definitely put it in this category. I think All-Star number 8 should be elevated. I think that's an even more important book. But
I have it here only because of the abundance and because she's not on the cover.
Yeah. Just to clarify too, the way you have these tiers set, it's not about value, it's about rarity and importance. Yeah. Just so people understand.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's strategically comes right after All-Star 8 and Sensation 1. I mean, it's not to give her so much all at the same time, but it really kind of makes sense.
So here's the most recent 0.5 Universal that's sold. This thing is what my old advisor in my PhD program would call a soup sandwich. I've also heard it referred to by British people as a dog's dinner. It's a mess, folks. And it's even a bigger mess than is apparent when you're looking at this. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Because this particular one was graded in July of 2023. It is, as we said, Universal. You notice that it's in the big magazine holder because
I did notice that.
Such a mess, right? It's got brittle pages. It's missing the centerfold. And somebody in their infinite wisdom laminated the cover. So this cover is melted into a plastic layer. There's no way to remove lamination.
Can't fix that.
No. This thing is stuck in this state now. There's no going back. When you laminate something, the plastic literally melts and settles into the material.
Becomes part of the material.
So it's over for this book. Now,
still a very collectible.
It's a Wonder Woman 1.
Level.
Now, it has the centerfold missing. This is the rest of the grader notes here. 1.5, they put 2 dashes, but I think that's to indicate inch, piece out of left top of whole book, slightly effect story, missing interior, part page wrap, centerfold, effect story, plastic laminated on both sides cover. This book's a mess, but in a way, it presents better than some 0.5s because 0.5 will often have half the cover missing.
Exactly.
And although this one's plastic laminated, it has the whole cover, front and back, minus this upper left corner that's missing. I do wonder why it has obviously a spine roll, but I do wonder why couldn't be fit into a regular Golden Age holder. It looks like it was close, and they just probably, Phil knows why.
Yeah. So there's certain books that are just prone to having been cut larger off the assembly line. It just is what it is, and I think this is one where you can kind of see, look just on the right edge, how much extra art and space that you have. This is just one of those copies where it might not necessarily be because of the roll, even perfectly straight. This is still always going to fit in just because it's cut larger.
And it's that early pre-war Golden Age. You know, this is summer of 42. This is before Pearl Harbor, and well, it was written before Pearl Harbor, I should say.
Okay.
And this is these are big books, right?
Yeah.
These are bigger dimensionally up and down. They're also thicker, so it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to take them out of the Golden Age holder.
Yeah, it just goes to show too, just one other thing, aside from registration and how straight or crooked it was all printed on the page, it's just these were cheap things that they were printing to get out. And if it was a little larger, it was like, this is fine. If you look at how consistent modern books are printed, you'll never really see those issues ever. But in this era, much more abundant.
Absolutely. Yeah, these were absolutely expected to be just thrown away. For context, you know, Superman 1 was printed, almost 1 million copies. And we talked about this. There's like 50 Universal still like hanging around, right? Like these things didn't survive. They were not intended to survive. They were intended to be consumed. Even the paper they were printed on was not intended to last, right? And that's why we have conservation now. So you guys wanted to guess at the hammer price here?
I'm not even going to guess at that one.
One of the most affordable entry-level copies. Or, I mean, if you were to think about it.
That's right.
Yeah, it ought to be. I mean, if you want a universal copy of it, like I said, as much as it's a mess and the centerfold's missing, I mean, it's slabbed, so how much do you care about the centerfold missing?
Go for eye appeal. So.
And it has more eye appeal than a lot of other 05s do, right? So
yeah. It does have some, I was going to say, the lamination and the page quality, though, really could.
It hammered for 4,560 in November 18th, 2023. So less than a year ago. So this is nice. We have a benchmark against which to compare this book. So what do you guys think of this 4,500? After taxes, you're at $5,000 on this book.
Yeah, that's. I don't know.
If I was a Wonder Woman collector, I would be hard pressed to think.
Yeah.
Anything that looks this nice for anywhere close to that price. So,
yeah,
you know, you have to be willing to accept the page quality and the lamination, but you know, it's almost for all intents and purposes,
point, right?
Some people might view this similarly to a purple slab because of the lamination. You know, so
oh, they could easily have said lamination is restoration. This is just a dice roll away from being, but the rules are the rules, right? And
well, they're treating the lamination like tape. I mean, you can have tape.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's one
tape free pass. I mean, it's not tape though.
Tape.
I mean, it's actually worse than tape, right? Because tape at least can be removed.
Yeah, this is done for.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's a book that we're going to be talking about. This is restored 0.5. It also presents very well. And in fact, it presents
very
better
well.
than the other book at arm's
does.
length, right?
Yep.
Well, we're going to get into it. So 0.5, this particular one was slabbed almost a year later, June of this year, and it is restored C1, off-white page quality, so much better than the other copy in terms of the structural integrity. Restoration includes small amount of color touch on cover. I'm going to show you that in a close-up in a little bit. Interior lightning, which of course we can't see, back cover, and 1/3 front cover color copy. Centerfold and 14th wrap missing, the DC Universe collection. This book was a hair's breadth away from getting NG.
Yep.
But again, the rules are the rules, and it snuck in. And again, it presents very well. So let's look at the grader notes. Color copy back cover. So the back cover's fake.
Yep.
Missing interior part page wrap, 14th wrap, which affects the story. Missing interior part page wrap, centerfold affects the story. So this is missing 2 wraps, whereas the book we just looked at was missing 1.
Part of it, yeah. Part of each wrap, rather.
Oh, fair enough. I guess that means we don't know exactly how much.
Not the entire wrap, yeah. Could be a couple panels. It could be 1 panel, just enough to constitute that.
Good point. Thanks, Phil. Quarter color copy front cover, and then interior lighten, small amount of color touch on center and left bottom, right bottom front cover. As I promised, I'm going to show you that.
Yeah, you can see the line. Yeah.
So here's the line where the bottom of this book was missing. The bottom of the front cover and the entire back cover was missing.
They lined it up really well.
They've done
really
actually a really nice color
They're
copy.
what it is.
And it's glued in here. And then you can see where there's just a fine line of color touch to just blend the white edges of the paper.
Yeah.
And in close up, you can see it, right? And it looks a little bit just like a tide line.
Yep.
But at arm's length, if you are a layperson, especially, you know, if you had this on your wall and said, "Look at me, I got a copy of Wonder Woman #1."
Notice it. Yeah.
Your Aunt Bessie isn't going to be like, "That's a fake," right? I mean, it really presents as a Wonder Woman #1. Now, again, this is a hair's breadth away from NG. I mean, missing significant parts of
the
2
interior.
wraps, missing the entire back cover, missing a full. I actually think this is closer to 1/3, but okay, CGC, benefit of the doubt, 25% of the front cover, and still getting 0.5 is an accomplishment.
Depends. It's all in the eye of the grader, but yeah.
But again, presents really nicely, and it does have good paper quality. It has good structural integrity for what is there, right?
I would say,
and the 2/3 of the front cover that's there look beautiful. Like,
Amazing.
yeah,
the 2/3
I didn't
part
do
that
the
you
whole
want
thing,
to.
but look at it, right? I mean, the part that survived beautifully.
Like you could probably give that other part a bath, and that horse would come out as white as the color.
Right? No, they could have color blended it just a little bit better. I mean, I feel like if I was doing that color copy, I would have just went back until I had it really matched essentially perfectly. Why not? Like, you can print that color copy 100 times and just adjust the shade by 1% each time in Photoshop, and then pick the best one and use that one to glue it in. I do think, as much as at arm's length, it looks great. Once you see the line, you can't unsee it, right? And I do think that could have been done better. But again, regardless, it's a 0.5.
Yeah, and then you got to look at it. If they left those pieces missing off the the back cover and the front cover, just universal graded it, what would it be?
Yeah,
probably the same thing.
It'd be a universal 0.5. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It'd be, universal 0.5.
I think too, just to clarify, because my brain was still trying to process the notes and the missing parts, and it can't possibly, like, for a second I thought it was like half of the 14th wrap, but they wouldn't have said that. They would have said page so and so missing. So this is only part of a page. So I guess I don't know.
Let's just go back and see what the grader's notes on this one say. This says missing interior part page wrap centerfold affects story. So here they use the word part. Do you take this to mean also that only part of the centerfold is missing? I took this to mean that's a generic part page wrap. I took this to mean the entire centerfold is missing. By the same token, I took this to mean the entire centerfold and the entire 14th wrap are missing.
Wow. I in my experience,
they don't normally do part page wrap. They normally say 14th wrap.
Yeah, it'll just
copy. The 0.5 actually, just in my experience, not to throw CGC under the bus, but they kind of have conflicting information on that in terms of what they have in the label text versus the grader notes, because it can't possibly be the entire thing missing, but then part of the page. It's either the entire centerfold is missing or not.
But to your point, label text, the third sentence says centerfold and 14th wrap missing. It doesn't say part of it. It doesn't say partial.
Yeah, exactly.
It says gone. Right?
Maybe they just accidentally, for the grader notes on the other copy, they kind of entered the wrong thing, but here this is more consistent. This is one of those unfortunate realities sometimes with the human element of people grading the books. And
this one says centerfold missing on the label.
That's not right. So that there's no question if how much is gone, it's all gone.
Yeah. That's why I was saying this is a hair's breadth. I mean, you can be missing the centerfold and get a 0.5. You can be missing half the front cover. You can be missing the back cover, but missing combinations of all those things and still getting a 0.5 is
well. In the label text, it does say centerfold and 14th wrap missing.
Yeah.
No,
what I'm curious of is the grade category at C1. C would be amateur. 1 would be minor restoration. I think this would be like a C5, like major restoration.
Well, I think they're not really counting the color copy as restoration. So the only restoration here is the tiny line where they color blended. So that's a little bit of color touch. And then they also got hit with the whitening for the interior.
Yeah. I got to rescind what I said then. I think what it is on both of these, the grader notes, how they have it there is it's confusing because it should read something different on both of these because it's
I agree
not
with you.
part of them. Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I think when they pull up their template, they're supposed to take out
exactly
what doesn't apply. You know what I mean?
You're supposed to circle one of those. Do you like me? Yes, no. And they were supposed to circle one. They forgot. They just sent it back to Julie without an answer. Okay, so what do you guys think, though? I think we've drawn this out enough.
Yeah.
Anybody want to guess?
I'll say 2.
6.
I'm going to say it's higher.
Shelby, you going to say 5999? Higher than 2 or higher than 6? What's that?
$1 above Phil.
Oh,
you're going 601. 601.
Price is right then.
Larry wins if we're using Price is Right rules. Almost exactly the same money, guys.
Wow.
Well, this one does present better.
It presents way better, right? It's missing 2 full wraps. It's missing the back cover, but the other one had brittle pages and it was laminated.
Yeah.
I honestly,
I got this one.
Which one would you rather have?
This one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Okay. Phil's on the restored copy, and you get to keep $500.
Yeah.
How about you, Shelby?
Yeah, restored for sure.
Okay, he's on the restored copy and the $500.
Yeah, I'd take the restored. I just like the eye appeal.
Yeah, I agree.
Great, doesn't it?
The other one just it looks like a horror show.
Yeah. Well, like I said, a dog's dinner or a soup sandwich. I will say one thing that I thought was really interesting. It's right here. Look at Ivan's estimate for this book. He had $6 to $9 grand on the estimate for this book.
Yeah.
So I think he was
That seems fair.
thinking that the eye appeal would carry the day here a bit more. For me, 2 missing wraps is a tough pill to swallow.
That is tough.
I'll say this, guys. If the universal copy had the centerfold, even with the laminated cover and even with the brittle pages, I would have been in on the universal copy.
Same.
Because the universal copy is missing the centerfold, I'm right on the fence. I think these were correctly priced because I think it's so difficult to choose between the two of them. I think I would go with this one, but I wouldn't think you're crazy if you went with the other one for this money. I just think this is such an interesting fair market value here because they were just so kind of evenly matched. And again, we regularly see restored books discounted anywhere from 50 to 75%, depending on rarity. And sometimes the really rare books will be discounted less. We showed you the numbers. This is not, for a golden age book, not especially rare, but it is really interesting to me that there's essentially no discount at all here. And it tells me that, people do buy the book, not the grade. And eye appeal matters quite a bit. And toward that end, I applaud whoever prepared this book. They did a great job presenting this book to potential buyers. They absolutely maxed the value out on this book. And I applaud that. For a book that's missing 2 wraps and is restored to get the same as the universal grade book, or again, within 10%, bravo. Well done. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. No, whoever did it, okay.
Let's say some hellos. We didn't really do shout outs at the beginning. So we got Don Carter. We got, of course, my buddy Mike Hugo Danner's in the house. David the Starman is here. Maurice Devereaux has been a longtime viewer of the channel. The professor, Peter Alachi's here. He said, "Where is everybody?" Shelby's Comics is here. Welcome, Shelby. Oh, you're actually right here. AG says, "Thanks, y'all." I think that's in response to the announcement I made about the sponsorship of this program coming to you from our 2 generous donors. Adrift is here. Welcome, Jason. Comic Cap Collectibles is here. Hello, hello. We're going to actually, that's a great segue. I'm going to come back to Comic Cap Collectibles in just a moment. Comic Book G-Man. Is that a friend of yours, Shelby?
It is. That's someone from my Chan.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome to the channel. Let's see. Adrift says, "I'd buy it for $1." I don't know if he's referring there to the restored one or the universal. Aaron Conyer says, "What's up, everybody?" And Peter says, "Why isn't missing centerfold qualified grade?" Actually, let's address that. Do you want to answer that, Phil?
Yeah. Unless I'm mistaken, the qualified grades are something that you kind of have to request. Otherwise, you're just going to grade it as is, unless I'm...
Oh, I know the answer.
Then
it's a little more sophisticated than that. So to get a qualified grade, you have to be a 4.0 or higher, a parent.
Ooh, I never knew that.
So the way it works is this. Let's say that you have a book that appears to be an 8.0, but it has one severe defect. That one severe defect could actually take it to a 6 or a 2 or even a 0.5, like centerfold missing, right? They will, by default, make it qualified. So one of the classic examples is Batman 181, the first appearance of Poison Ivy with that centerfold, the pinup centerfold, which is very often missing. If you have a beautiful copy of that book, but the centerfold is missing, and you send that in, They're going to grade it, and they're going to say, well, this looks like a 6.0, 7.0, 8.0, but the centerfold's missing. Ordinarily, that would make it a 0.5. But we're going to grade it as a parent 6.0, green label, and then the notes say centerfold missing. Now, what that's doing is it's saying this is the apparent grade of the book, but the technical grade of the book is 0.5, right? Once you get below 4, so you get to 3.5 or lower, they say, well, the discount isn't really getting you much anymore. If you were already a 3.5 and the centerfold is missing, we're not going to give you a qualified grade. You're just a 0.5. So you should not see, according to their rules, you should not see a 3.5 or lower qualified label ever. And that's how qualified works. So missing centerfold, same thing with Hulk 181, same thing again with the anything that's missing a centerfold or a pinup, something like that. Now, what you were mentioning, Phil, there's some truth to that. And that is this. If you're sending in a book and it is going to qualify for a qualified grade, again, imagine I have Batman 181, the centerfold's missing. It's an otherwise beautiful copy. I'm sending it in. If for some reason I'm like, I just don't want to deal with trying to sell a green label book. They sit in my inventory forever and it's a pain in the ass and I don't want to have to explain it to people. You can request a universal grade. So the default is that in instances where one defect, particularly something missing, is going to knock something way down from an otherwise nice book, the default is a qualified grade. But if you send in a note saying I would like it graded universal, then they will give you the universal 0.5 on that. So that's how it works. Drift says, hypothetically, if a conservator married her after the first book, could it get a whole number grade? Yes.
Page quality is going to still kill it, but it could be above a 1. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mr. Collector 123 says, hello, hit the like button. Thank you. Sometimes we're not shilling for ourselves. Our viewers are shilling for us, and I appreciate it. Let's see. And Hugo Danner, Mike says the same thing. Please leave a thumbs up, people. Thank you. Okay, so I said I was going to come back to Comic Cap Collectibles, and here's how I'm going to do it. Oops. I'm going to point out that this channel was nominated for a Comic Book Community Award for 2024, and we made the finalist list. I want to say thank you to everybody who voted for us, everybody who nominated us, and the committee. And I'm truly humbled to be on this list. We all are. These are great channels. And look right there at the top of the list is Comic Cap Collectibles. So thanks for joining us. As I said last week, I'm not actually going to ask you to vote for this channel. I'm going to ask you to vote, though. And the reason why is all these creators are creating just for the love of the hobby and just for the love of the community. We're not getting paid, but pennies on the hour. And we're really doing it for the love. So please take a moment, follow the link. I put a link in the description. Super easy for you. Follow that link, click on vote here, scroll down. It is a long ballot. This particular category, for those I counted, it's the 22nd box down. If you don't happen to watch any other channels and you just want to vote for this category, scroll down to the 22nd box, vote, and then scroll down at the end and click submit. Please vote for somebody. Again, everybody's really putting a lot of effort into this, and this is one way that we can show our appreciation for the content creators that are otherwise, like I said, just doing it for the love. So thank you for joining us, Comic Cap Collectibles, and good luck in the voting. He says, I have no chance, but thank you. He's putting out some great content. So I think, Jerry is I believe the last 2 years won it. Jerry's won it a couple of times. So I guess he would have to be the favorite, but I think everybody there is making great content. Yep. All right, let's go to our A segment.
Dun, dun,
And this
dun.
is Jack's origin story, as told by Shelby Thompson. Welcome, Shelby. It's great to have you on the channel. And, you know, we know you from the Facebook group, and we know you from this channel. We know you from YouTube. Obviously, you have your own channel. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you kind of behind the scenes. And we've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing about your background and letting the viewers know a bit more about you, your channel, what you've done, what you're doing. And yeah, take it away.
All right. Well, so Paul suggested to help viewership, everybody comes to my channel for Jack. So that
I didn't suggest that. I suggested that that's the reason they're going to your channel. To be clear.
And I don't disagree. Yeah. So Jack is a character. If you look at any of my early videos, Freeway used to be the main character, but she's been suffering with cancer for about a year now, and she doesn't get around too much, and Jack is kind of taking her place. And it's really kind of funny, like, yeah, 4 cats, and they'll mimic each other, right? Like one will do something for a while, and then all of a sudden the next one will start doing it. You know, and it's like y'all just copied each other, you know. One person will find a spot, and then all of them want that same spot now. You know, it's like y'all haven't cared about that spot in a year. Why are y'all wanting that spot now? But no, Jack's been a good brother. He gets into a lot. He's my most ambitious and rambunctious kitty. So yeah, he came to me and his sister on Halloween about 2018. I came home from work one day. We couldn't find Fluffy Kitty, the neighborhood cat, and we knew she was pregnant. And about 2 weeks later, I come home from work and she's sitting on my front porch with Sally. Oh. And I'm like, okay, so you know where to bring the cat for.
He chose you. You were chosen.
And so I took in Sally, and then the next day I came home from work and she had Jack sitting there.
Awesome.
So yeah, they became adopted, and it was Halloween, and one was orange, one was black, so I named them Jack and Sally for Nightmare Before Christmas.
Dude,
okay.
Aren't you guys glad I asked him to give us Jack's origin story?
We love fluffy friends. I have two myself.
Put that in there. I said, "Are you kidding me?"
Oh,
that's awesome.
Very,
I love that.
Very cute kitties. Very cute.
Yeah. And Freeway was actually found by a girl named Shelby on the freeway.
No.
And her mom wouldn't let her keep her because she breeds dogs. And Charlie, even though he looks black, he is pure chocolate. So he was named for Charlie in the Chocolate Factory.
Cool.
But anyway,
very cool.
Yes, I am old. I'm 55.
You believe that,
I was
guys?
born in Monroe, Louisiana. If you ever seen the show Duck Dynasty,
yeah,
that is Monroe, Louisiana. That's my hometown. I don't tell you that to brag. I tell you to feel sorry for me.
Just for context. So speaking of being old, like I told Shelby I thought he could pass for 35 years old.
Yeah.
He's actually a grandfather. You guys remember like about I don't know, episode 17 or something. I said, this one's dedicated to all the sexy people. And I said, it's all the MILFs, all the DILFs, all the GILFs. It was actually Shelby I was talking about.
Wow. Well, Shelby, you do present young, so.
You do. The water in your neighborhood is the fountain of youth.
I just say it's all the drinking I did when I was younger. I'm so, but yeah, I remember my very first comic books. I was sick in bed, and probably one of my worst sicknesses. You know, I was only like 5 years old. My dad came home from work early and brought me a bag of comic books. And the 2 comics I remember the most was Spidey Super Stories #3 and Hulk 180. And I literally read Hulk 180 till the cover fell off. And when that happened, I loved that character on the back panel, Wolverine, so much that I cut it out and hung it on my wall.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I wondered if you got Hulk 180 if you went to the rack next month and happened to find 181.
Did you have to wait long? Do you remember to get that next issue to find out, how the battle went?
No, because see, I was only 5. So I didn't really have a concept of sequential comics, right? Like I didn't understand that. I saw numbers on there, but I was 5 years old, so I wasn't sure how you would even get the next issue or something. It wasn't until I was maybe a couple of years older though that I figured out you could go down to the Safeway and buy these things, and they came out monthly and things like that from the rack.
Wow.
So
he was so close, your dad.
so close, yeah. And I actually
or is the comic book community just off? I mean, technically he gave you the first appearance of Wolverine.
He did. Yeah.
Technically. Yeah, I actually looked these up whenever I was doing this, and
that's a hell of a way to start, huh? Yeah, my first book was the first appearance of Wolverine.
Do you think if you had the 181, you wouldn't have cut out the last panel, but you would have cut the cover off or something and put that up on your wall because it's still Wolverine, right? Or your favorite panel from 181?
Who knows what Shelby's 5-year-old brain would
do you have your copy of Hulk 180?
Oh no, I lost all that stuff.
Oh yeah, actually, sorry.
The flood.
Yeah, we'll hear about that later.
But no, and then I was just addicted to comics. I purchased comics. Comics has always been a part of my life as long as I can remember. And my mom encouraged that. Like she just loved that we were reading, So always was happy to give us $1. Back then $1 bought you 4 comic books. And $1.02 because sales tax was 2 cents per dollar back then. So I remember being able to buy 4 comics because they're 25 cents each, and if I had $1.02, I could buy 4 comics.
Wow.
But yeah, I owned a store from 87 to 93. So we there? Am I still here?
Yeah.
Yep, you're still here.
Okay. But yeah, I owned a store from 87 to 93, the end of the big comic bust. Pretty much put me out of business. Thank you, Image Comics. Being 5 months late on every one of your issues. You really screwed me over. But yeah, everything was in storage and I lost it all in a flood in 95. So it was 92 long boxes.
Whoa.
Ouch.
Did it just end up in a landfill? Did you get an insurance payout? How'd that work?
There was insurance, but they only did it for a certain amount, and I ended up getting, I think, $1,200.
Good.
But with that $1,200, I built my first computer in 95. And that's what actually led me to my career now, which is so in a way it kind of paid for what I am now. So, I hold no ill to it now over all these years. And what I've come to find out is with the advent of eBay and stuff like that, you can find all this stuff again.
Yeah.
It's not like it's gone forever. So but yeah, so I started collecting again in 2003, and I just gotten my second divorce. I was heartbroken, and it's like what used to bring me joy. And
retail therapy, baby.
And I said myself comic books, and so I started. No, it's only 90 comics. You see it drifts.
Yeah, he says. Mother Nature did me a favor. He also lost some 90s comics in a flood.
Yeah. But so and yeah, I've just been collecting ever since, very picky. I'm a Marvel person in Bronze Age and Copper Age. I probably have, I know I have over 100 complete runs of Marvel. So like, Spider-Woman, Marvel Spotlight, any of those Marvel, whatever, right?
Marvel
Raw,
Premiere, yeah.
Shogun Warriors, Devil
Marvel Super
Dinosaur,
Special, yeah.
Marvel Supers, all of that. Yeah, I have every one of it. So
cool.
I do collect video games too. You can also see I collect toys. I'm in the toy room. But yeah, I'm pretty close on a full set of GameCube games. And yeah, so yeah, I'm just addicted to collecting.
You're a collector. Yeah.
So yeah, then bringing us up to the modern era is during the pandemic. Ended up being unemployed for 10 months. Very depressed, just the cats and I here, and I started discovering YouTube auctions, and so I started doing auctions on YouTube. Then I created my own YouTube channel. Then I started doing my eBay store, and yeah, so currently I have around 360 videos. I've been a YouTube started in 2020, and yeah, it's full of different content. I still only have 570 viewers for some reason, but that's okay.
Yeah, the viewership, it takes a long time to build viewership on YouTube, man.
It does.
It took me 2 years of heavy content creation to get to 1,000. So
yeah,
you just got to slug through it. The next couple thousand, the first 1,000 is by far the hardest. Before we go to the next slide, I want to say hi to Carl Beatty. He says, does anybody like drawing? He was an art teacher for a few years. And welcome to the channel. Glad to have you here.
I used to thought I would be a comic artist. I used to draw all the time. I don't anymore and hadn't in a long time. But
probably all went through that phase. Phil, you actually studied art, yeah?
No, but I did. I did like drawing when I was a kid. I just found piano is my creative outlet. So that's
yeah. And I actually started as an art student back in the day, because I shared with like Larry some ideas in paper making and stuff. But I did end up going back to school late in life, as after my parents died in my late 20s. So they're not with me anymore. But yeah, I went back to school, got a BA in psychology. Didn't have anything better to do, so I stuck around and did a master's in experimental psychology. Which was great because everybody was my rats. I started out in a rat lab, so that was like my first. I'm very old school. Doing research with rats way back in the 90s and just working my way up to humans. But yeah, after I finished my master's, again, I still didn't have anything better to do. But I had that first computer in 95, and I got interested in the internet. I got interested in websites, and I taught myself HTML coding. And by 98, I was doing side gigs of building websites. And so my department head said, you love computers so much and you're really good at research. Have you ever considered this industry called human factor psychology, which basically is the psychology of human computer interaction? And it comes from aviation. Larry and I have talked about this. It was born from
human factors. Yeah.
The way people understand like cockpit layouts and things like that, and sizes and things like that.
Trying to make interfaces more intuitive.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah. So, So I did my PhD at Wichita State University, graduated in 07. I wanted to come back to the South. I was either going to move to California and, wear nothing but cutoffs and sandals and go to work at some university as a researcher, or move back to the South. And I had an opportunity to come back to the South. I ended up getting a job with Lockheed Martin at NASA at Johnson Space Center. You can see me with Gene Krantz, Jim Lovell, so Apollo 13 popularity. And I've met a lot. Like I have over 20 publications, and you know, I helped with like contributed to several books from astronauts and things like that. So over time period, the Orion space exploration vehicle, I did the research for the controls and displays with that. You can see a glove box over there where we have an astronaut doing different glove box procedures with the different interfaces. One of the big projects I worked on was when we was planning on going back to the moon, the new lunar rover and stuff. So that was actually in Obama's first inauguration. So I was there in Washington, D.C. during that. And
that's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. And you can actually see what's funny about the picture on the bottom left is you can see the windows, but you can see the interior skeleton cuts across in front of the windows. That's because the engineers use layouts for cars to determine window size. And then our experiments determined that windows needed to be larger. But they had already sent in the schematics to get the frame built. And so, yeah. But that right there shows you, right, the importance of research, experimentation, and things like that. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
That's great. So that's the background that you bring to our hobby.
It is. So I started, I meant to bring the comic book in here, but I used to be really against pressing and stuff. And it says here I started 2 years ago, but I think I meant conservation probably about a year or so ago. But pressing I've been doing probably about 3 or so years. And I'd done hundreds of books, but it'd become kind of, I don't know, boring to me, if that's a way to say it. Or I will say it like that. And then I discovered Rick with Immaculate Comics and his process of wet cleaning, because dry cleaning drove me crazy. Sitting there with a little eraser and stuff. That's why I commented about your patience on your post the other day, Paul, because a lot of times I don't have the patience for it, man. I just get jittery.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on record saying I think the most important quality of a comic book conservator is patience.
I agree with you.
You need to, you can't be in a hurry doing this stuff. You really can't. So yeah, I get it. That's why I've taken some flack, but that's why I'm always talking about, like, make sure you're breathing, make sure you have good posture, make sure your feet are flat on the ground, because you're going to be here a while. And if you're starting to get tensed up, if you're starting to just get uncomfortable, you're going to break something, and it might be expensive.
And you're right. You've got to get that good posture, get your feet on the floor, get your brain in the right space, do some deep breathing if you need to really approach it. But anything that could cut the process down for me, I was interested in. And Rick actually he's in Seattle, but he comes down here to Texas every now and then. And we became friends, and I bought his potion of AccuClean. But then what I found out was, while it's a great product, you are using a cotton bud or round. And so you are putting pressure and things like that on the book that's kind of unnecessary at times, right? And a lot of these older books can't handle that type of friction and pressure and things like that. Jerry was probably the next one I found because seeing his stuff with leaf casting. But then I know I found y'all kind of early on, Paul and Larry, and I think I came to this channel. Y'all are on your 3rd episode or something when I found y'all.
Yeah.
So if that gives you a context, that gives you a context of when. But yeah, then I started looking at the comic baths, and then the and I know have H and O inverted. Sorry, don't.
That's okay. I'll forgive it. You're not a chemist after all.
I'm not a chemist.
I'll poke a little fun at Jerry. It's art, it's not science anyway. So the formula doesn't really matter. I mean, if you're an artist, who cares what the formula is, right?
Yeah, and funny story, actually, whenever I entered into college and you declare your major, chemistry was required, and I kept putting it off until until I was about to graduate. and they said, well, you can just change your declarement year to a year that doesn't require chemistry, right? So I literally changed the year that I declared my major so I wouldn't have to take chemistry.
Okay. That's some avoidance effort right there.
That is some avoidance. But I'm a smart person, and I'm a statistician, so yeah. But yeah, you made it really easy, and Larry made it easy and made it accessible, right? And I guess that's probably the best way to say it, is for us lay people that wanted to wanted to do more because we love comics. And I couldn't tell you how many times, you come across these old, beaten up, ripped up comics, and you're like, something should be done to be able to preserve these,
I think that's one thing we all share is we just love comic books. And when we see one that's been well loved and maybe a little past its prime, we just feel for it, right? We just want to preserve it. And that's what leads us to do some of the crazy things we do, especially with respect to sometimes spending way more time and effort than would be financially intelligent to do, right?
Exactly.
But that's okay. It's a hobby, right? And, other people have hobbies like playing poker with their buddies on Wednesday nights that cost a lot more money than this. So, at the end of the day, I think that's one of the things that unites us is just a love of these books and a desire to preserve them.
Yeah, I used to fall asleep with comic books in my bed all the time. But I found so really quick, just a little bit more praise to you guys is because of me finding this channel, this show. Let me say this.
Oh, we lost Shelby.
Oh, he's frozen praising us though, so we should leave him.
Oh yeah, thanks. He'll come back.
Carl says, "Do you think I should get a comic book heat press?" Carl, I think you should.
I do too.
You can get one for around $200. I have one that comes highly recommended. If you look in the description,
Shelby's back.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, Shelby. Just a second. We're just fielding a question here. In the description of this video, there's a link to my Amazon affiliate page, and there you will find a link to one that I recommend. And they're inexpensive, and you should watch a bunch of videos, and you should start practicing. It's a very rewarding hobby. Sorry, Shelby, you were trying to praise us, and I clicked pause just to freeze you there because I wanted you frozen in time, praising us for all eternity. My
VPN, I forgot that I have my VPN turned on, and I should have turned it off before the show.
These books came out great, Shelby.
Yeah. So really quick is I was so happy to join the comic book community, and I know that I just started like posting things, and one of my goals was like, let me see how fast I can become an expert. Because I felt like that was a touchstone for me, right? Of making a move from pressing and cleaning to conservator. And I remember the exact day I was in Dallas, and I was riding around with a friend of mine to some comic shops, and my phone buzzed, and it's like, oh my God, Paul just made me an expert in the community, and I'm like, I've arrived.
I mean, this cat's doing some good work, right? I mean, here's some highlights of it, and it's obvious that you came to play, and that also you came with the right attitude. You came to the group wanting to help others and wanting to contribute. And so that's what our Facebook group is all about. So that was an easy decision.
Yeah, I love contributing, and each one of these had something, very particular, wrong with it. Like the Wiz comics had the grease pencil, and I'd actually posted pictures of that, and I was able to remove all the grease pencil because of taking advice from, Paul and other people in the community and the Marvel family, the spine roll, the rust removal at Transformers. I actually just sold that Transformers book. I bought it for $5 and I just sold it last week for $40.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
great. Congratulations.
And I disclosed it to him. I said, hey, this had rusty staples. I removed the rust and all that. Here's the pictures. And they're like, nope, that's fine.
That's
So
awesome.
they're very happy with it.
Yeah.
I do tend to, several people in the community have asked about how you get started and stuff. Is I really look for things that's within my range of abilities, so I do look for very good books, has defects within my ability, and I try to buy them cheap. I rarely pay over $40 for anything.
Yeah.
That's kind of my stone. Now I have spent more, don't get me wrong. That Sensation Comics cost me $200.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I started, and then I just slowly built myself up. Okay, let me try this next step. Let me get used to wet cleaning. Let me get used to Tengujo. Let me get used to making the right wheat paste. I'm watching videos using methyl cellulose. Learning my own little ways of doing things that work for me. So
absolutely. And I think one of the strengths of your channel has been to show an entry level path. Phil's working on client books mostly, and for the most part, they have to be big boy, big girl books to justify his time and effort. And, Captain Larry and I are fortunate enough to be in a socioeconomic class where we can buy books that we dreamed about as kids. So we do tend to have, I love all books, and I do have some entry-level books on my channel, but I tend to not be able to put every book I work on the channel. And I do tend to put the bigger wow factor books, on the channel for my content creation. I love about your channel that you talk about, I've won this book, this Golden Age book, for $2 at an auction, right? It was more to ship to my home than it cost me. And those are great projects. And that's sort of entry level is what we need, because not everybody's fortunate enough to have the kind of capital to put into funny books that some of us have. And, but the hobby should be accessible to everybody. So I think that's one of the strengths of your channel.
I agree.
I was super cheap when I first started working on books. I was buying books for like under $20, like clown comics and like GI, like offbeat war ones from the 50s. Where you're like, it's falling apart. Give it to me. It's only $5. Like that. I don't want to accidentally wreck anything that has some real value. These are already basically falling apart. That's what you want to start with. So
absolutely,
that's the way to do it.
Yeah. So Paul asked me to give a little highlight of something, and this was one that I was kind of proud. I mean, I was proud of. But I was able to show some equity increase and things like that. So I'll talk through it really quick. Cover retelling of Captain Marvel, and for some reason, don't ask me why, I just love Captain Marvel. I love CC Beck. Actually, Mark Swayze, who was a longtime artist on WoW and Mary Marvel, he is from my hometown of Monroe, Louisiana.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
I knew Mark. He died 2012, 2015. But yeah, I knew Mark, and he would tell me stories of working in the CC Beck studio and things, because all that was studio stuff back in that day.
These really are great books. The way that this company met with an ignoble end, with DC suing them and losing, the way that Fawcett lost that suit. For me, even when I was younger, I thought that was a tragedy, really, because the Captain Marvel stories were very different, right? This was an actual child that was transformed into this supernatural, super powerful being. And he kept the childlike innocence in a lot of ways. And it was a completely different experience than Superman. I actually felt like it wasn't the same character. And the way that it went away, and then DC handled it for so many decades, it's unfortunate. I think in a way it's great for us now, right? Because you can buy these golden age. So for those that don't know, Captain Marvel was literally outsold Superman at the height of the golden age.
Yeah.
It was extremely popular. So these books were produced in greater number. And also because then they had decades of cultural, literal irrelevance. They just are not as sought after. So you can buy some beautiful books, wonderful storytelling, amazing art, and you get it for a fraction of the price of a similar Superman or action, similar era Superman or action. And so on the one hand, it's great for us as collectors and as conservators. On the other hand, it's kind of sad that this character met with kind of that ignoble end. Maybe someday it'll be fully resurrected. They're definitely, DC in the last 20 years has definitely done some more constructive things with the character and with the Marvel family in general. But it's just not back to the level of supremacy that it enjoyed in the golden age. So,
yeah, and there's a reason, like, I'll say I do know two reasons. One is, come on, man. I grew up as a fat kid that was picked on a lot. Don't you know that it was a dream of mine to be able to say a magic word, become someone else, or become a superhero, right? I mean, I love Dial H for Hero. If you remember that, DC.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Right.
Adventure Comics. They had a period there where they had a bunch of great George Perez covers to those stories. Yeah. I love those.
So being that child that can become something else or someone else, and like I said, I mean, it's in the backdrop of the young fat kid that was picked on in school, but there is that appeal. Second is the auto binder stories. There's a reason why I love also those goofy Supermans.
Is it Binder? I always thought it was Binder.
Bender. I'm sorry, Bender.
No, I actually don't know.
No, I think
I think it's Bender, actually.
I think it's Bender.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why I love also those 1950s goofy Superman stories, because guess who wrote a lot of those? Same writer that did Captain Marvel. And so I just love those. So
I think those stories did not suit to my earlier point. Those stories, while you may have loved them, they really didn't suit Superman nearly as well as they suited Captain Marvel. Those stories are a natural for Captain Marvel because he's literally a child, right?
I'll agree with it, because that was the child fantasy. Yeah. I want to be a superhero,
and so when you go back and read the early action stories, they read almost like a pulp. I mean, he's almost like what's his name, Doc. The pulp hero.
Savage?
Doc Savage, like the Man of Bronze. Like, he was the Man of Steel. They were like, ooh, we're going to do one better than Man of Bronze. They're very pulpy. They're very serious. I mean, not quite to the level of the early detective with Batman, but nevertheless, they're pretty serious. And to have that character go from that to what he was in the late 50s and in the 60s, for me, it just didn't fit Superman nearly as well. And again, that's why I lament the...
a lot of the characters from that era went into different transitions.
Fair enough. Batman went through the same.
I was just going to use Batman as an example. Joker was a clown, really. And then all of a sudden they decided, you know what, let's make this guy evil. And they took him and made him pure evil. Yeah. But for the early part, he was just like a goofball clown.
Goofball.
Yeah, it's just a goofball.
Pie in the face. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Pie in the face.
Gotcha. Barbara Gordon then. Yeah. Then
that one moment said, you know what? Let's make him dark, and they did.
Yeah.
And that worked really well. That set the character. Well, they started doing that with the rest of the character, but Captain Marvel never changed. It stayed the same the whole way.
That was great.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great comments of people talking about Captain Marvel. And one thing, I think, trying to see Bronzeville, the very first serialized story was the Mr. Mind arc, and it was it wasn't Injustice Society, but it was like Society of Evil or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a 32 part serialized story, and it's like the very first serialized story.
Very important story. Yeah. Thanks for joining, Bronzeville. Always great to see you here. Monster Society of Evil.
Yeah, binder. So anyway, really quick with this one is, this had all the issues I felt like I could do something with. It had rust stain, but not horrible. Spine roll, torn blunt covers, couple pencil marks, overall dirty. But important book, the retelling of Captain Marvel origin, cover only type thing, right? There's not a story inside that retells the origin, but the cover retells the origin. I purchased this on eBay. I think I paid $100 for it. I paid a little bit on it, and they thought it was about a fine copy. I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but the rust stains kind of threw you off a little bit.
Yeah, you could see it being more like a 5.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
But it's in that area where you wouldn't argue with this. Me personally, I wouldn't argue with the seller. I don't nitpick at that level. I do my own assessment, and better to have good karma
here or
out there.
doesn't bother me. Now, I will say this is like my limit. I kind of choose is leaf casting and tape removal. I know I've been talking a lot to Larry about the tape removal stuff.
Yeah.
He's trying to get me. He's
We're
trying
gonna
to
get you doing both.
No, you're doing good. Now, Shelby, did you buy this book as a project?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I need to sit down and actually pull all my Captain Marvels together and see and start. I never intended to buy so many Captain Marvels.
They're affordable.
Are we ready for next slide here, Shelby?
Yeah, go ahead. But I need to see what I have and don't have. But yeah, just so a couple things like, go through the simple process, right? Starting out that cotton round, wiping down the cover and stuff. You can see all the dirt that I removed just from the simple dry cleaning of rubbing the cotton round. You're removing something, when your water from the bath looks yellow, like
it looks radioactive.
I would say, pea yellow. And sometimes you have that smell, and sometimes you have that smell. If y'all know, sometimes that has a weird smell.
No, it's not a weird smell. It's a stinky smell.
Yeah,
it is very.
It smells like old rotten garbage. Sometimes it's really very pungent.
It is.
It is.
It stings the nostrils.
Yeah. And when I put out the videos on this, kind of as a comparison, accidentally to like the Spectre comic that Dr. Paul did, is I did decide to go ahead and deacidify each page. Not that I thought I could reduce the rust staining or migration that you see here, but it was at a level that I wasn't positive it wouldn't keep deteriorating the book in some way.
It's definitely best practice.
No, I agree.
I just admitted I don't always do it, but it's definitely best practice.
Well, the other thing is we're talking about the smell. The smell is a factor that CGC uses. If the book stinks,
absolutely.
they're gonna knock half a point or a point off of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The staple did snap. The bottom staple snapped, and I did buy a Gene Autry book. Sacrifice.
I mean, all these genres finally had their day in the sun, except Westerns. Westerns just, all these other genres that used to be able to buy for a song, they've all had their day in the sun. I don't know if Westerns will ever come. They never say never, right? Someday they'll have their day in the sun, but it still is not yet.
Very
today.
Narrow fan base.
It might have to be a century from now.
It'll be like some funny animal ones where it just it falls within that lowest tier kind of realm.
Absolutely,
it's okay.
Well, I think even funny animals are higher than most of the Westerns these days.
The majority, I wouldn't say, they're standout funny animal ones, but most of them really fall into the similar. But I see what you're saying. You kind of.
I mean, if I wish to choose, though, like certainly any of the Disney funny animals are higher up than Gene Autry, right? And
Yeah.
even like if you start looking at, Mighty Mouse or, some of
Woody
the other,
Woodpecker.
yeah, Woody Woodpecker, those ones. I mean,
I choose those over genealogy. Yeah, you make a good point.
These are my donor books for Staples.
Yeah.
Everybody has a pile like that.
When I was with the professor and we were
Fluxes.
doing dollar bin diving, he found a coverless Golden Age Disney book, and he said for $1, I mean, it's got vintage Staples from the 50s.
Also
left.
staple.
That's
Exactly.
for sure worth it,
Absolutely.
right?
100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shelby, can I ask you, were you scared when you disassembled this and that staple snapped?
The staple
Initially, were you scared?
No, if you watch the video, I expected the staple to snap when I disassembled it. It didn't snap then. It snapped
When you went to close it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, I 100% expected it. It did not scare me one bit because I knew how thin it was, and I'd actually had a similar staple snap on me a while back. So I would have been very surprised if it hadn't snapped.
You were prepared then. Gotcha.
Adrift is commenting on how even the romance novels or the romance novels, it's true. That's another genre. It was just dollar bin fodder for decades.
Yep.
And now those romance books are taken off. And the thing is, I don't really think of myself as a bandwagon guy, but when I was younger, I was like only interested in superhero comics. Now I see the interest in some of this pre-code horror and some of the romance, and I'm like, I could see myself buying one of those books.
Yeah, I have a small stack, very small stack. So one thing that Paul asked me, is there something special that I bring to the hobby? And there are two things I haven't seen anybody else do. I watch. While there's not a lot of pulp paper conservation stuff out there on YouTube, there are poster conservation videos.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
Vintage
very
posters.
similar to me. If you look at the process in which they use for poster conservation, is really similar. And there's this group of 3 ladies, and I can't think of the YouTube name right now, but they said, sorry.
Does it begin with a T?
Don't give me the line, Phil. But
it's Fourth Cone. Fourth Cone.
Fourth Cone. That's it.
Yep.
Fourth Cone.
Yep, they're very well known. Yeah, I love watching them.
Yeah.
Yep, Fourth Cone.
But
shout out to them.
They start out the same way as we do with using surfactant and distilled water. And if you think about the chemical, this is a little bit what I understand about chemistry, is that dirt and debris tends to hang in oils. And surfactant actually breaks down the oils. And so
I think you're trying to say oil, Shelby. For those listeners at home
what I just said was
that need a
oil.
translation, he's
That's
trying
what
to
I
say the word OIL.
Oh, you're picking on his accent.
That's what I said. Oil.
Oil.
He doesn't mean
Jersey people
everybody.
saying
He
oil.
doesn't mean all the people in the room. He means the.
That's great.
Go ahead, Shelby. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
We have fun.
We do. So, one thing they do is they take a very soft bristle brush, and during the wash, where the oils,
He said it right.
the oils has been broken down to release the debris, is they take a soft bristle brush and go around the book. And I started doing that. Now, you do have to be careful around the colors. You can do 1 or 2 passes, but I've overdone it on a couple of books. One book. So I really hit the spine, which can be a difficult area for me. So I have added this process, and you can, when you pour off the water, see floaties.
Mm-hmm.
I've also had books that no tanning was removed, like it wasn't yellow like this, but it was gray,
Right.
because I was able to pull so much debris from it just by using the brush versus just the sloshing and such. So this is something I've added, and then I don't have it in here, but then my foam core board where I have the needles and I overlaid the pages, that has ended up working well for me, because what I figured out I could do is once I get all the pages laid, I can do a second needle and do both holes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And then the staples will go straight through the book into the foam core and hold your book together. Then you just got to pick it up by each corner, flip it over, and boom, you're done. No having to hold up the book and,
I've seen your videos on it.
the staples and stuff. It's become so much easier. But that's back to me being a hobbyist with board gaming. And I used to make foam core inserts into games to hold all the pieces and stuff. Instead of them rattling around inside the box. So that's where I got the foam core idea from.
That's great.
You can go
the backstories.
Yeah, I've been using the foam sheet to do my page alignment for staple reinsertion for quite some time now.
Well, you don't have a video about it. I do.
Yeah. I'll just direct everybody to Shelby's video.
So here's a before and after of the cover. I think the big thing is not using any evaporust, because Peter and I did actually talk, and we did a video call about this particular book, and just using 2 good baths, one surfactant, one without. I did go a little bit heavy, like 1/3 on the calcium hydroxide versus 1/4. And I mean, I think the results speak for themselves. You can see the black rust is gone without evaporust. The red rust is still there, but it's in places of once you put the staple back, you can't see it.
Yeah. And for those that might be wondering, if you look at the original reference for the calcium, so calcium hydroxide washes actually go back way back. Limestone water, what we call hard water, is buffered in calcium. It's basic. And if you go back to the era when Europeans were just learning how to make paper, they were placing the paper mills along streams that were flowing out of limestone water and were already basic. And they were not putting the mills because they learned that the paper wasn't any good if they put it along acidic streams, for example. So this goes way back, but the paper that I always reference, there's 2 papers that I always reference. They're from Margaret Hayes, and they were in the 70s and 80s, where she really described, she sort of put together what conservationists already knew and described some of the parameters around it, how to make the milk of lime, how to use it, how it had been used by other conservators, and just in that paper, she describes using it actually at full saturation is acceptable, or half saturation, or the 2 that she listed as sort of conservators using most often. I use less than that because I'm typically doing more total washes, and it's worked out reasonably. As viewers of the channel know, I'm usually 20 to 25% saturated calcium hydroxide in my tap water. Now, my tap water is hard. I do have, I'm actually like living literally on top of limestone deposits here. So that I have a well, and the well water is lime water. So I'm adding to that, and that works for me. Everybody should see what works for them. There's a comment here actually from
I
was just going to let's address that last week, but notice white powder residue once dried. I brushed it off. Is that common, or did I fall off track somewhere during the process? I'm assuming the case should be an I. I do not have residue, so
I think what happened is
I have one speculation. I'll throw it out first. You can get precipitate in your calcium hydroxide bath. And so go back and watch my videos where I make the milk of lime, I shake it up, then I allow it to settle. That's a super saturated solution.
Say.
Yeah,
let it settle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
was
pour
your
off the
calcium
top.
hydroxide cloudy? And if it's cloudy, that's probably what left the residue.
Yeah, you should never use a
Exactly.
cloudy solution. I
It should,
pour
it
off
should
the
be
top
it should be
once it's
clear.
settled, and that's completely clear. And then I mix that with, for me, tap water. If you can do with distilled water, or if the only thing you shouldn't use is chlorinated city water. The other thing that I will say here, though, is the other possibility is if you have not, so your calcium hydroxide water will keep your milk of lime will keep indefinitely as long as it's airtight.
Yeah.
But if it's in the presence of carbon dioxide, which we have about 2% in the air, it will start to form calcium carbonate that will sometimes precipitate out. And so that could be an issue too if you're storing it long term. But you're saying that you did your first, so you probably just made your solutions up fresh.
Yeah.
I would say probably you didn't allow that to completely settle. So this is important. It matters. Mix that milk of lime up, let it completely settle. I do it
You
overnight,
have to wait.
24
and then
hours.
it's completely
There's
clarified.
there's no quick way to do that. You have
And then
to.
just
That's
pour off
talk to
the
the
top.
patients. You have to have patience.
What
to do this stuff.
what I do is I mix it up actually by the gallon, and I just use it. I'll mix up the master bottle. I have 3 bottles. I have a master bottle, which is the full concentration. Let it settle out. I'll use that to pour out my 20% solution. I keep another gallon jug of that. And as I see stuff go down, then I'll mix up batches on the stirrer. And then I have a 3rd bottle, which I also add the peroxide to, and that's as needed. So, but yeah, I just use glass. I just ordered 3 1-gallon glass jugs from Amazon.
Yeah, they're
with
glass milk bottles.
lids.
Yeah, glass milk bottles on Amazon. I think it was $9. And I do follow Larry's method where I pour it off and I keep a gallon in reserve, and I keep one.
Just draw from
let
it.
settle. And then I keep
Exactly.
one that has the super saturated solution. But I like to feel cool and pour it into a beaker and then put it on my comic book, so I kind of feel like a scientist.
Well, the other thing, and as a non-chemist, maybe Dr. Paul can answer this. I also, chlorine will come out of water if it's sitting. I water my plants with a big barrel, and if it's using tap water, city water that's chlorinated, the chlorine basically evaporates out after about 4 days anyway, out of a barrel. So
That's true. Yeah, you can dechlorinate water. Bonus
Naturally.
points from Bronzeville Comics. Hard water can give you superpowers. Bonus points to anybody who knows the origin story of a Golden Age superhero that got superpowers from hard water. Anyone?
nope.
Jay Garrick,
I was about to say, yeah, was it?
Flash Comics 1.
I was going to say, was it for the Flash?
It's the vapors from hard
Sorry.
water that gives him super speed.
I was a Marvel guy. Sorry.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Hey, there was
That's what I was thinking, but I knew it wasn't right for Barry Allen. I was like, wasn't it Flash? But yeah, it's the Golden
Jay
Age
Garrick,
Flash.
baby. Yeah.
So really quick, I'm going to answer a Drift's question. Evaporust, if you go back one slide, Paul.
I'm working on it. You got it.
So right there, that center picture showing the rust migration on the pages. If you notice too, the pages still have some, I'm not sure if I want to say tanning, but even though each page was washed, the page isn't white. And what's going to happen is if I put Evaporust on there, yes, it would have mitigated the staining of the rust migration, because I did some experiments on a similar spot on a project, another on another book, a sacrifice book, and it did remove it, but it left a white area. And talking to Peter, the reason why is because Vaporust is slightly acidic, and it is bleaching that paper.
Yeah.
So the paper originally from the factory was probably yellow, and it wasn't bleached, right? They didn't bleach the paper back then in the Golden Age. It wasn't
Well,
until
they did some bleaching, but
some,
it's been oxidized since then,
yeah,
and
thank you.
you're basically, that's exactly what's happening, is you're oxidizing it, right? And bleaching is a specific term that means whitened based on a chemical reaction. We use it generically to mean bleach, which we normally mean chlorinated bleach. But of
Right.
course, you can bleach something with a chemical that doesn't have chlorine in it, and that's what's happening here. There's an acidic solution that oxidizes the paper and has a bleaching effect. So,
Right. So,
by the way,
Peter,
for the record, just for completeness sake, there are basic bleaches as well. There are chemical compounds that are not acidic that will bleach papers.
yeah. So Peter and I went down the thought process of what is your trade-off between having a white-ish spot versus the rust kind of stain. And if you were to send this into CGC, would the white spot be an indicator that you have done something unnatural to the book and automatically throw you into a restored category? And
I think we're in early days. Yeah, we're in early days, I think, of derusting paper in terms of comic book conservation. I had mentioned it and referenced some very interesting studies that I found in the literature, probably I think a year and a half ago. I didn't get time to get back to it, and the professor really did an amazing job bringing it to us. That's Peter Alachi and his channel, and Experiments in Conservation. And I think we're still very early days. I think we will find over time that we're able to remove these kinds of stains without bleaching the paper substantially. Yeah. And I think, that said, this was not a book that you were going to experiment on in that way, right?
No.
So this book,
exactly.
This was a book where you were going to do some things that you were already comfortable with, that you were improving and trying to create some equity in this book. Right. That's for experimenting on, some of those dollar bin books and some of the other ones that we talked about, on your channel. So I think that's the correct answer here. Is I believe we will get to that point. We're not, as a community, quite there yet. And it's going to take some more experimentation. Again, it's crazy. It's a bummer that comic book conservation is not science, because then we could do some experiments. Unfortunately, it's not science, it's art. And so we're just going to
it's witchcraft. That's it.
Magic.
So I do know that the Evaporust would have removed that, but I felt like it'd been at a cost of a white spot, and I just wasn't prepared to, like Paul said.
You did the right thing.
Experiment this time with that.
Less is more.
I agree.
And it's better to just do what you're comcomfortable doing. The book is going to be there in the future if you want to come back to that.
Exactly. These aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
We have several people that have books that are just sitting aside waiting till their skill sets get there.
Yeah.
And
sometimes
I
they
agree
do
with that 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's also very reasonable to take a book, and if you're comfortable doing tape removal, just remove the tape and don't do anything else at this point. Just put it back together, right?
Just stay in your lane until you're ready to get out of it.
Experiment, especially for these books that are more legacy books. Practice on the poor Westerns. Practice on the Westerns.
There's plenty of cheap books.
I post Classic Illustrated.
Classic Illustrated actually.
Classic Illustrated's a great one.
That's even lower on the totem the totem pole than the Westerns. Absolutely.
So here's the last picture of the interior staining, and like I said, this is without Evaporust. This was just a strong calcium hydroxide bath.
Yeah. And as I recall, no blue light bleaching, no photo bleaching here either, right?
Negative, sir.
Yeah. But I think the surfactant helped.
Oh,
and then, probably as much or more even than the calcium hydroxide, though I'm sure they both have an effect here.
Yeah.
Very nice improvement.
Yeah.
So very nice,
so seeing the last final picture, like you can't even see the rust because they're taking away the spine roll and everything. See the part of it. If you were to put this at now maybe a 7.0, 8.0, you're probably talking about a $180 to $220 book. So I'll probably build $60 to $80 equity on the book. Which I think is great. And you can just see, I mean, it's beautiful. It just
it presents so much better.
so much better. And I'm dropping a video Monday and Wednesday I talk about that. There's nothing better than pulling the book out of that final press, and it is amazing.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'll be super.
I really appreciate you sharing this sort of case study with us and your origin story. We have sort of some parting notes from you and where you're at so far and where we're sort of going. I'm actually not trying to rush you. I'm just trying to sort of sum up and sort of lead into this last slide, which to me is really, we worked on this deck a little bit together. Phil and Larry haven't seen it, but to me is really great way to summarize the state of really comic book conservation and your journey through it so far and what comes next. So by all means, I wouldn't rush through it. Let's enjoy this for a moment, because I think it's great.
It may be experimental rigor in the way to say it, but it's definitely, you're bringing some rigor to the art of conservation, and you are mixing science in the way that we make the chemicals and things like that. But one thing that we learn as researchers or experimentors, is the environment is so important. Jerry's in his basement next to an oil furnace. Larry's upstairs in a room in California. Paul is in a studio with a wet bar. I'm in a house from 1965 with 54 boxes of comics, that have all retained humidity and things like that. I'm in a very humid spare room of my house. On a fold-up table that's not leveled. I have a hard water, but it has a high copper content. So I've had to use only distilled water. Like when I go to the store, I buy 5 gallons of distilled water at a time. So really understand your environment, and that what might work for Paul may not work for Larry, work for Phil, or work for me. But the point is to digest all of that information and use it and discover what's right for you.
Yeah. Build your own skill set. Practice all these things, modify them as required, as appropriate for your own situation, and then practice, right?
Practice. And once you kind of get that down, you're going to really start to understand the comic book and what it can take and what it can do. Always look at whom the seller is, and particularly where they're at. Are they in California? Are they in New York? Are they in Colorado? Or are they in Florida? Because that will give me a little bit of an understanding of the book. I'll look at the bag. The bag, if it's old ratty bag versus a new bag, that's going to tell me something about the book. I was just talking to the guy from Blizzard Comics about one of the bags he used on a comic I'd gotten last week. And it came from another Golden Age. He's like, yeah, I reuse bags. And I'm like, well, that's good to know. Thanks. So you use all your senses, your touch, smell, like Larry talked about, and visual, right? So it's not just visual, it's how the comic feels, sometimes how it smells. It came from a smoker's house. Oh, God, that thing's going to stink when you start pulling the tanning out of it.
Yeah.
You let the comic tell you its history and what it can handle, what it needs.
You got to pay attention now. You have to be listening.
That is one of the important things that Paul always brings to his videos. Like, he has his first episode assessment. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to assess this book, and I'm going to look at it from a particular lens and take my time and call out the features of it. And that is going to dictate to me what I can do with the book.
Yeah.
So it will dictate things like when to use surfactant, how many washes you can do, You know, like me choosing to use a little bit more calcium hydroxide on that Captain Marvel book without fear of removing inks. Not using a hot piece of holly text on top, right? I came up with that idea after Paul and I were talking about is maybe the movement of the holly text. And it's like, well, just don't use a piece of holly text on top. And I talked to
Extra
Phil and I'm
abrasion.
like, I don't use a piece of holly text on top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I started working on that technique. So there's no set of rules, only guidelines in which we work by.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
then
like to think of it as like study, practice, have in your mind what is best practice, but know when it's not appropriate for the project you're working on.
exactly.
Yep.
So Freeway made it up here. She's my sibling.
Oh. Oh. Ah,
So
kitty.
she'll make it around every now and then. And then learn your process, I think, is what we're all building up to, right? Be open to all areas of conservation. I watch fine art videos. There's this guy up in, I think it's New York, you know, that has a really great fine art restoration channel. Posters, I think movie posters, concert posters and things like that are really similar to like comic book covers and stuff, right? So you can learn some things.
You know what's actually shockingly similar because it's chemically almost exactly the same? Old uniforms and clothing. Like in a museum, if they if they have a officer's uniform from the Revolutionary War, or even, you know, clothing from older than that, linen and cotton clothing, they are chemically essentially the same. I mean, they're the same as high quality paper. Of course, the paper we are working with is pulp paper, which is a lower quality, but in many ways, they still share all the same chemistries.
It does. And I actually used that analogy in a post a while back in the Facebook group. I don't remember what is concerning now.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. And Paul and I talk about this all the time. Do what's right by the book.
Yeah.
You got to have a right mindset. Are you trying to build equity? Or are you trying to conserve?
Absolutely.
Now, equity is always, we hope, is going to be a byproduct. And we hope that making the book look better is also a byproduct. What the goal is conservation of this book to have it be able to survive another 100 years for someone else to enjoy it. I don't slab my stuff. You know, now, am I going to send some things in for slabbing? 100% yes. But for the most part, I do not slab like these Captain Marvels because I love reading them.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
enjoy them.
And until I find a good, they haven't reprinted a lot of these because there is some negative cultural bias in some of those stories.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, and that's just part of the time. Each book is a mystery, and it's kind of your job to solve that mystery and unlock what the characteristics is of that book. I've already kind of said that the goal is to conserve. And then with the 100 book rule, this is friend of mine, Ed Piscor, who passed away. Him and Jen Brugg has the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, and they talk about the 1,000 page. You know, you might start becoming a competent artist when you've drawn your 1,000th comic book page.
Yeah.
I think the same way for us in this new hobby of conservation. I might start being adequate once I do my 100th book, you know, because there's so much I can learn and take advantage of during that process. I know I'm novice. I know I'm learning. Yeah. I do new things all the time or tweak things, and I ask advice. And we're all always Baumgartners is it. Thank you, Adrift. Yes, Baumgartners. Super great channel. But yeah, that's it for me. And I know I'm here, Paul, Phil, and Larry. Thank you all three for being there for me.
Thanks for
with
being on, Shelby.
questions and stuff. And I love and appreciate being part of this community.
And we're thrilled to have you. And like I said, I really appreciate how much you came to play and how much you contribute and how much you're willing to roll up your sleeves and help other folks that are less experienced than you and share the experience you've had. Love the channel. Wish you all the success there. We'll be seeing you obviously daily in the Facebook group. And I think we'll have you back on in the future for sure. Looking forward to you doing some exciting stuff on your channel. I suggest we get tape removal out of the way first, and then we'll move on to leaf casting.
Yeah, I've got to get. Larry's trying to build up my confidence with it.
Also, you know what's great? We four are all going to be at the Collector Summit.
We will.
In less than 60 days.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this for a long
chest.
time.
I keep spending money out of my comic book war chest.
I'll certainly be broke.
I gotta stay off of Heritage on Sundays.
Actually, I was in Heritage earlier today, man. Everything was too rich for my blood.
I have it running off to the side over here on my computer, and
I mean the golden age market seems to be in pretty darn good shape because I was hoping for some bargains, and I didn't see any tonight.
No, I didn't get anything tonight. I wanted to address something. Adrift had a question way back earlier asking about our lighting setups. Just shoot me an email, and I'll help you with any lighting and camera setup.
I think we all have that round LED with the.
I do not.
With the thing in the middle. I know Paul and I do, and so does Jerry with the. What am I trying to use?
One of these?
Well,
no. There's one that has the lens in it where you can put it over the book and it'll make it bigger.
Like just an attachment here, so you put your phone or whatever you're filming at right in the center.
No, that's not what.
No, it's basically
in the middle of the ring, Phil. The one that I use.
It's got a Fresnel lens in it.
Is actually it's a regular lens. It's actually like a magnifying glass this big around.
Yeah, I've actually stopped.
I know what you're talking about.
I changed desks and I took mine down and it's sitting in the floor behind me. I've actually switched to these.
Yeah.
So I use these. These are so much easier to clean. They're mobile, things like that. But as for studio setups, I do have a full set of studio lights. Right now, I'm actually have them turned off because they really are kind of blinding in here. I have my iPhone faced backwards with the light on.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yeah.
So it's literally sitting on top of my camera, illuminating me. But there's different setups for lights. I do have big lights, but I just don't use them unless I'm actually doing a studio shot for cleaning.
I have an arm that's in my other room. It comes up.
Yes, it's too bright.
It comes up and out and has an attachment for my not iPhone because I'm anti Apple. For my Android device, and so that is what it is above me. Looking straight down on the desk.
I couldn't text him the link to StreamYard because
he's an Android guy.
I'm a PC guy. I'm a PC guy.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but he brought it up. So.
He lives in the dark side.
And I'll say just, Jason, really briefly, I'll probably do a post about this or a video maybe. One of the things I did was I set out to really have good videography, and I set out also to do it on a budget in all shareware and just in the Apple iOS ecosystem.
Yeah.
So I actually shoot all my videos with an iPhone, and I do all my editing in iMovie, and I'm self-taught in all of it, so I still have plenty to learn, but I do have some studio lights. I'm also an amateur photographer, and so I have a couple of really nice tripods. I just buy them used. You can buy like a tripod that was $500 like 20 years ago.
Mine at Goodwill.
And you can buy it today on eBay for $50 or $90, something like that. I recommend just getting a used tripod, but get one of the high quality, like the Italians made the best ones 30 years ago. Get a Gizzo or a Manfrotto, something like that. And and that's what I use. And I have a few of them around my studio because I have one set up over my hobby mat, and then I have another one that I use for whatever I need in any particular moment. So that's what I do. And but you know, the point is, I have an iPhone 12. I'm shooting all my video on an iPhone 12 at the moment. You can do quite a bit with shareware, freeware, and just with the phone in your pocket if you are if you take your time to sort of get the details right. So you don't need a lot of expensive equipment.
To Amazon for that camera, which I thought about buying. I think it's a really nice setup.
This is a Logi. This is actually a Kickstarter. And that's how I got it, and it's perfect for close-up stuff. It's designed strictly for really, really close. I have not made a video with it yet.
That's great.
So that's coming.
Well, we're almost 2 hours. That's a long show for us. We usually try to keep it around 90 minutes. I think we packed a lot in. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Phil, Larry. Thank you, Shelby, for joining us. Thank you, all of the viewers, whether you're watching us live or you're watching us on demand. We appreciate you very much. Thanks again to the fellas that brought our video here to you ad-free if you're watching it live. That's Ben Stewart and Cap One Superman. Thanks again, guys, for the generous donations. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to say my exit, but I really want Shelby to talk us out because I love his exit. So I will say to everybody, thanks again. We really appreciate having you here. And until next time, take care of one another.
All right. Peace, love, and comics. Bye, all.
Bye.
See you, everybody.
Incredible. Bye, everybody.